We're going to move over to David Eddington now. So David is our last customer speaker of the day, and when he submitted his session title to us, I was slightly nervous about what to expect, but I can reassure you that you're not about to be subjected to any sort of X-rated session now. Instead, David's going to explain to us all how we can use FME to help protect ourselves online a little better and alert us should we be part of a data breach. We're also really pleased that David's session actually dovetails very nicely with what we heard earlier at the North Ayrshire example from Dylan. So over to you, David. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, it's quite a straightforward workspace. It's non-geographic, so it essentially just queries an API. It's built using FME Desktop 2019.1. And we have it set up running as a Windows scheduled task. It just runs on a monthly schedule and distributes a list of any possible data breaches. It didn't take long to put together. It probably took a couple of days to go from like inception to its fully working current state. And this was inspired, I can't remember why the police were here, but the police were here for some reason talking about data breaches. We didn't have a data breach. They were just here in an educational capacity and just giving us some guidance. But yeah, anyway, as David was saying, so yeah, this uses a service that again, the police showed us called Have I Been Pwned? It's got a very simple URL. You should all go on and see if you have been pwned. I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole with this one, trying to find out what pwned actually meant. And yeah, I spent probably longer Googling what pwned could potentially mean than doing this presentation, which is my bad. It seems to kind of come from the world of video gaming, although some people seem to argue it comes from a chess match in 1935, but I don't know, that's a whole different thing. But this service was set up by an Australian internet security expert in 2013 called Troy Hunt, and Wikipedia describes it as being a website that allows internet users to check whether their personal data has been compromised in data breaches. And as it kind of illustrates, you can go in there, type in your email address, and it will hopefully come up saying you haven't been pwned, or if you're unlucky, it will come up saying you have been pwned. And as you scroll down the page, it will show you things such as this, that there was obviously a data breach at Dropbox in 2012, gives you some information about it, and then most importantly, it tells you what data was compromised in the breach. The way this benefits us as an organisation is it's handy to know about data breaches, obviously, and a lot of people around the building all use different services, especially departments like media and marketing. They'll use services we don't really know about. So if we can find out that a service someone uses has been compromised, we can get them to change their passwords on their internal systems. We can block their accounts if necessary, or we could just scrap their accounts altogether and set them up a new email address if things have got substantially bad. But obviously, we wouldn't come in here and type in an email address for all 250 people in the organisation once a week or once a month, or how often you want to run this service. So that's where we used FME. I should, however, come clean, and during writing this presentation, I actually realised that our FME process doesn't work anymore, and that's because, unbeknownst to us, the API that Troy used has been deprecated and replaced by a version 3 of the API, as opposed to the version 2 of the API that existed last year. So bear with. You can still get an API. The one downside is an API now costs money. The service is a monthly subscription of $3.50 a month, which works out as about £35 a year. But local authorities don't really hand out money, so we don't have a license. But this workspace would still work exactly the same. And we're very happy to share it with anyone who would like to have a go. This being said, some other features that have been added are a notify me, where Have I Been Pwned will contact individual users, so you can sign up with your personal email address or your work email address if you wish. Although if you would like to set this up for your entire organisation, like we initially set it up using FME, there is now a domain search. So if you're willing to jump through a few hoops, Have I Been Pwned will contact you if anyone on your domain shows up in a data breach. We're not sure what this looks like because we haven't signed up to this ourselves, but I still like to think the FME process gives you some nice formatting and some nice flexibility around how your information is displayed and how it's disseminated around the organisation. But yes, this is the workspace. So again, ignoring the fact you could just sign up for a domain search, this is the process we built before that functionality existed. As it says in the top right, this essentially notifies the different teams within our ICT department if an account has been compromised in a data breach in the past month. When it says in the past month, that doesn't mean the breach will have taken place in April 2020. It's when that breach will have been added to Have I Been Pwned's database. So that breach, which I showed earlier of Dropbox in 2012, I don't think came to be public knowledge until 2014 or 2016. So sometimes these breaches are quite old, other times they do show up quite quickly, especially more recently, like when Airbnb was breached and things, companies come forward a lot sooner now. But it's not necessarily as it happens. But yes, the workspace is very simple. At the very beginning, we query the Have I Been Pwned API. We do this using an extract of our Active Directory and a decelerator, as the API only allows one query per 2 seconds, I think. So the decelerator just makes sure it doesn't go over the query limit. And if you do that, I think the API blocks you. It blocks your API key for a period of time. Following that, the API delivers a JSON response, which we use the JSON fragmenter to split apart, and we use a number of different transformers to filter and format the data into something which will be a little bit more usable. And then, of course, in the green bookmark, we are selecting just those data breaches which have been added by Have I Been Pwned in the past month. Following this, we use the very handy dandy no features tester that David actually mentioned earlier. It's a custom transformer, and it is fantastic. So this allows us to terminate the workspace there and then if there have been no new data breaches. And this triggers a Slack notification you can see above, which just delivers us a nice message just to tell us the process ran and there are no new data breaches, so we can all relax. If unfortunately there are data breaches, it follows down the side of there were some features found, and initially this will start to format an HTML report and notifications. By this, it adds some nice it does nice formatting of the data and does some nice styling of the data for an interactive HTML web reports, which I'll show later. And it also styles up some Slack messages slightly differently, just to help you when you have a glance at your phone in the morning. You can see instantly whether there's a big problem, or, you know, oh, okay, I'll email those people when I get in, etc., etc. It also writes off a CSV version of this report, which can be downloaded later and interrogated more thoroughly if you need to. This is essentially the same as what's included in the HTML report, just a little bit more straightforward and standard. If a user were to desire that. This is thrown up onto AWS, as is the HTML report, once that's written, which happens later on. And then at the very end, it's just the distribution and notification of said report and said CSV. And these come through, as I say, stylized slightly differently to the previous notification, with the red banding if a password has been breached, and a yellow banding if there's been any data breach at all, but passwords weren't compromised. And as you can see there, it says click here for more details. That will take you through to this page, which is our interactive HTML report. This is hosted up on AWS as well, and it just displays in a nice interactive manner the information brought down by the API key. You could download the CSV, which I previously mentioned, using that you could download the CSV using the detailed report download button in the middle, if you wish. And as it says, there's a tab for details, which will give you some more details about what the breach was, what data was compromised, when it was, etc., etc. And there's also a list, although only one person was affected in this breach. It will list all the email addresses of the people who were affected, so we can get in touch with them. But yeah, as I say, this is I'm a little bit late to this one, unfortunately, because Troy's added all of this to the Have I Been Pwned website. But it's well worth having a look. And as I say, we're very happy to share this workspace if someone does want to buy the version 3 of the API or has it lying around already. We're very happy to share. Thanks.
Thank you, David. That's great. I mean, I also fell down the same rabbit hole as you, and I haven't exited yet with any further information. It's a really important message to get out to people about their own personal security and online presence, and this site is a little bit unnerving, actually, if you start digging into some of the results. So it is worth spending a little time on personally. I think you had a really good hot tip in there, and that's the decelerator transformer. There's not too many people that I come across that have come across the right use case for a decelerator, but using it before an HTTP caller is absolutely one of the main ones. So that's a really good tip to make sure you don't get blocked from some of these services. So thanks very much, David. Really appreciate your time.
No, that's okay. Thank you.